Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the StudentLoanJustice.org live stream. My name is Alan Collins. If you have student loans, you came to the right place. We're glad you found us. Tell everyone you know about this group, and get ready to rumble, because we have got a great fight for justice on our hands. Remember, StudentLoanJustice.org. Hey, everybody. I hope everybody is having a great midweek. It is Wednesday, March 10th. We're glad that you found us. I'm going to get right into it, folks. We are the oldest, largest grassroots group in the country fighting for student loan justice. We've been around since 2006. We've been featured on all the networks, including 60 Minutes and NPR and PBS and ABC and NBC and CNBC and Fox News and Newsmax and you name it. Suffice it to say, we know a thing or two about the student loan scam. And it is a scam. In fact, it is a catastrophically failed scam at this point in time. Consider, even before the pandemic, 80% of all federal student loan borrowers were either unable to pay, and that was about 65%, or they were paying, and their balance was going up. Not down, up. That's like 15%. That's 4 out of 5 people with student loans were never going to be able to pay before the pandemic. So, folks, the default rate of subprime home mortgages was about 18%. We are looking at a default rate for current, certainly federal student loan borrowers, but probably private as well, who knows, of something like 4 times that much. So 70, 75, 80%. This lending system is toast. It's done. It's finished. And this pandemic is the nail in the coffin. So just a couple of things I wanted to point out today. First of all, I should probably lead with this. If you can make a moderate donation to support our efforts, it is greatly helpful. I almost never lead with this, but we survive only and totally on very nominal donations from normal people. We don't need much to survive, to fight and win this battle, but we cannot do it on nothing. So if you can help there, we do have a $50 donation challenge out from Paul, a restaurant worker in Boston. Restaurant workers have it tough these days, as you know. So if Paul can do this challenge, I think that's really saying something. If you can meet him, meet his challenge in whole or in part, it would be gratefully acknowledged and appreciated at this time. So, okay, here's the thing. Here's the news. The tax thing. Okay, in the COVID bill, there is language that I finally was able to get a copy of the actual legislation and look at it myself, that indeed does exempt canceled student debt from taxation, which is important. Before this legislation was in place, we had tax-free forgiveness for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, but in the IBR program, for example, all forgiven, or I would say a better word is canceled, student loan debt would be taxed as income, which is just ridiculous. So this language gives us an exemption through 2026. So if you're in IBR, quite frankly, it's a joke. It's meaningless. Because the first IBR loans are not going to be canceled before 2026. So it's just stupid. But for the purposes of canceling student loans by executive order, which is going to happen, it pretty much is an inevitability at this point. If Joe Biden has even a shred of decency, that is going to happen. Hopefully, all of it, because this is a catastrophically failed lending system, folks, and that is what we are fighting for. You know, it is our petition that we started in March that caused all of this conversation we are now hearing about with regards to canceling student loans by executive order. So this COVID thing, the tax thing, is actually not nothing. It is not insignificant. But if you're in IBR and you actually think you're going to make it through in the first place, I'm sorry, guys, you're just wrong. If you're in public service loan forgiveness and you think you're going to get your loans forgiven through public service, no, it's not going to happen. The data is in. 99% rejection rate for public service. They kick 99% of the people in that program to the curb for one reason or another. Similarly, with IBR, we know that 5 years ago, 57% of the people in IBR in just 1 year were disqualified for failing to properly prove their income. So I'm telling you, folks, all of the forgiveness programs currently in place, IBR, PSLF, pay, repay, you name it, IDR, those are all designed to fail. The Department of Education, the cruel truth, the cruel joke, and you are the punchline, by the way, is that the Department of Education has no desire or intentions of canceling any loans. If they can get away with canceling 0 loans, that is exactly what they want to do. They are not a good faith actor. They've never been. So, but guys, don't even trip on that. This lending system has failed. The loans have to be canceled. We are seeing a groundswell under our feet. This pandemic is the nail in the coffin. The president, whether he knows it or not today, he's going to cancel loans by executive order. It's the only way forward. But remember also, folks, we are also fighting very hard for the return of bankruptcy protections to the loans that cannot be canceled by executive order. Quite frankly, that to me is probably more important than any of the nonsense cancellation we're hearing about right now. There's up to $10,000, there's up to $50,000. It's a joke. That's like salesman words. Up to, you can win up to $50,000. No. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense. The entire lending system is catastrophically failed, and all of the loans have got to be canceled. So, good on the Senate. I think that probably started maybe with Elizabeth Warren. I'd have to ask them, and I will. But whoever put that language in there, we appreciate it, and that actually does plant some pretty good seeds for us. So that's that. Now, my biggest fear, folks, and I've already started to talk about this a little bit. My biggest fear, and this happened to us like 13 years ago, was that the bad guys, that is the student loan swamp, the entrenched interests in Washington, D.C., they would love to do a fake cancellation as a cheap substitute for returning bankruptcy protections to student loans. The great equalizer here is bankruptcy protections. Now, I know nobody out there wants to file for bankruptcy. It's a terrible thing to have to do. I get that. But the founding fathers, who they themselves were being completely skewered under debt to British banks and merchants, they felt so strongly that the citizens had to have bankruptcy protections that they called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution, not the Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself. And they called for this ahead of the power to declare war, ahead of the power to raise an army, ahead of the power to build a navy, ahead of the power to coin currency, ahead of the power to create a judiciary, among other things. That is how important the founding fathers felt that having bankruptcy protections was to keeping the citizens free, the economy vibrant, but I think more than anything, keeping us a free country. So, guys, I'm worried. I'm very worried. The Department of Education would love, first of all, they would love for Congress to pass some stupid loan cancellation, because Congress would have to raise $1 for every dollar in loan forgiveness. So in other words, the Department of Education would love for Congress to shower upon it $1 trillion and say, go cancel $1 trillion in loans. We know the Department of Education will find every way possible to not cancel loans. They will get hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars, and we will be left in the lurch. And at the end of the day, there will still be no bankruptcy protections for student loans. That is a killer. That is not acceptable. We were fooled by this, as I said, 13 years ago. In fact, some of the good guys, the people in Washington, D.C. claiming to be fighting for students, they pressured us very strongly to not fight for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans, because they had these great repayment plans, IBR and public service loan forgiveness. Well, how's that working out? Guys, we're not stupid. We're not fools. We've been doing this for 16 years. We've written books. We've broken many very important news items in the press and in other places on the student loan issue. We are not fools. We have been extremely vigilant and watchful of this problem as it grew from bad to worse to catastrophically worse proportions. And we're not going to be tricked by anyone, even people claiming to be the good guys. So we have to be on guard for that, folks. We are fighting almost harder for the return of bankruptcy protections to all student loans as we are for loan cancellation. And quite frankly, the first will beget the second. So with bankruptcy protections in place, there will be probably a wave of filings so large it will overwhelm bankruptcy courts to the point of seizure, probably. And at that point, it will become overwhelmingly obvious that, okay, all right, game's up. Let's just get rid of the loans, cancel the lending system, and come up with something better. So I cannot tell you people strongly enough to be very vigilant. Be very vigilant for people talking about lame loan cancellation and who never, ever, ever mention bankruptcy. It's a trick. It's a Washington, D.C. trick. Don't fall for it. We're not going to fall for it. A lot of people will fall for it. The media absolutely will probably be in on it, and they will do everything possible to make you believe that this up to $10,000 or up to $50,000 loan cancellation is the best thing since floating soap. Well, I'm here to tell you it is not. It is a trick. It is the way the bad people running the student loan system and all the swamp people around them is the way that they would like to defend, perpetuate this indefensible, horribly awry, failed, catastrophically lending system. We can't be stupid, guys. Don't fall for it. So, there's that. Now, the last thing I'll talk about tonight, we're getting a little long in the tooth. We have a lot of resistance. We have a lot of resistance now from primarily talking head conservatives. People like, I don't know, people on Fox News. I have seen Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy, Dave Ramsey, who's just an absolute charlatan, and others. I mean, there's some knee-jerk conservatives out there, just normal people that are like, hey, when you borrow money, you got to pay it back. I paid for my loan, you got to pay for yours. Well, I'm here to tell you, folks, these people don't know what they're talking about. This lending system has failed. No matter what they say or do, this lending system is toast. And remember, the number one thing that you can say to these people is ask them this question. Ask them, do you work for the banks? Do you work for the colleges? Do you work for the federal government? It sure seems like it, because while you're wagging your fingers at the people being crushed by this monstrous big government lending monstrosity, this monstrous big government college enriching lending monstrosity / scam, think about that. Wagging your fingers at the borrowers only helps the colleges. Now, most conservatives don't like the colleges. Most conservatives don't like big government. Well, they are fighting for both of those things when they wag their finger at us, the poor people getting wrecked by these loans. You might also point out that 55% of student borrowers, in other words, 55% of everybody with some college, identify either as being Republican, that's 43%, or independent, and that's 12%. That means the majority of student loan borrowers are not Antifa, they're not anarchists, they're not protesters, burning things down or whatever. No. They're just normal people, and the majority of them, as I said, skew either Republican or independent. So, and you might also add that there are more people over the age of 50 with student loans than there are under the age of 25. The highest balance borrowers are people over 50 by far. So you need to get that little meme out of their heads, because as soon as you mention student loans, they immediately go back to, like, I don't know, spring break drinking beer, or like Antifa and protesters, and they think it's a communist plot. Well, if they're worried about communism and the colleges indoctrinating the kids, they should be on our side, not fighting for the colleges and for this big government, unconstitutional, predatory, hyperinflationary, extremely vicious, and now catastrophically failed lending scam. Can you think of any more adjectives? Anyways, I always seem to add like one more adjective the more I say that. So yeah, conservatives should be on our side. And remember, there are 55 million people in the country with student loans. 55% of those, that's like 30 million people who are inclined to vote Republican, and probably did vote Republican in this last election. So if they want to completely alienate 30 million people, 25, 30 million people away from their party, and if they want to betray their own principles in the most blatant and brazen fashion you can possibly imagine, then they should keep allowing themselves to be tricked onto the other side of this issue. They're idiots, and that will spell the death of the Republican Party. We're a nonpartisan group, guys. Frankly, we can stand neither party. We treat them both very equally, and anybody who's been on our group will know that that is true over many years and decades. But guys, conservatives should be on our side, not against us. Any conservative that starts wagging their fingers at us and saying, oh, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, they deserve to be educated and put to shame. They are embarrassing themselves. They are fighting for big government. They are fighting for the colleges. And when and if this country ever does turn socialist or communist or whatever they're afraid of, they'll have themselves to thank. In fact, I will put them up for the useful idiot medal if and when that ever happens. Because they were so petty and small-minded. They had to wag their fingers at the easy target, the students, rather than the big government college enriching lending monstrosity that stood behind the whole thing. They ought to be embarrassed and ashamed, and they owe us an apology. So just remember that. So the last thing I'm going to say, we've written all this stuff up, folks. We need your help. You know, we're not a huge, rich organization with any employees or anything like that. We don't have a marketing department. We don't have any of that stuff. All we have are us, the people. That's all we've got. But at the same time, I really think that's all that we need. So right now, there's two critically important things that we're working on. Number one, actually three things. Number one, our petition, change.org/cancel student loans. We are very close to 1 million signatures. Please do everything you can to push that petition. We can only do so much from this end. Word of mouth is the only way this petition is going to break that 1 million signature mark. So do everything you can to push that petition. Second thing, we just discovered that there are 19 states in the country who owe more in student loan debt than their entire total state budgets. So the worst on the list is Georgia. So if you live in Georgia, you better be listening. Georgia's entire state budget is $48 billion. The people of Georgia owe $81 billion in student loan debt. I could go down the list. We're talking Georgia, Florida, Texas, North and South Carolina, New Hampshire, Missouri, Tennessee, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and a few other states. But if you pay attention to that list, most of those states are red states. So conservative states are being hurt by this far worse than other people. We need to get that news out there. If you look up or there or somewhere around this post, you will see the press release that we issued that describes all this in a very nonpartisan way, by the way. We did a kind of a partisan-esque type of thing. But no, we've cleaned up our press release to be very blind to partisan considerations. And, dudes, as I said before, this starts with us. We need you to send this press release to every news organization you can think of. Nobody's going to know about it if you don't tell them, and that's just the way it is. Anybody who knows anything about state budgets or state politics or anything like that, particularly news directors at local news stations, when you tell them that the state owes more in student loan debt than the entire state budget, that is like instantly reportable. That's a big deal. So please do that. Kansas is also on the list. See, all these states that I'm mentioning are red states. So, if we can get even one Republican governor to say, you know what, I had no idea. I honestly didn't know. And I give them the benefit of the doubt. I truly don't think that any of the governors actually know what I just told you. I really do not think that they do. But if we can get just one conservative governor to stand up and say, Mr. President, I had no idea this was going on in my state. Cancel these loans. I think that would cause a stir that ultimately would cause the lending system to be wiped away. I truly do. Because once we get a Ron DeSantis or a Brian Kemp, governor of Georgia, or the governor of Texas, governor of any of these states, any of these conservative governors, if they stand up to the swamp, stand up for us, the citizens being crushed, and they demand that Biden do this, that's pretty much game over, guys. That's pretty much we win. So you could be the person that gets that information to the governor's office through the media, or maybe directly. Maybe you have some ins with the governor's office already. I guarantee you, folks, they don't know this stuff. They just don't. This is federal debt, and states are states. So this is a very hot item right now. And the entire weight of this entire $2 trillion nationally threatening tragedy in the making is on your back. You heard me say it. You can't. I'm not going to unsay it. Truly, you could be the person that tips that one domino that causes the cascade that just, boom, makes us win and gets rid of these loans. Think about that. I'm not kidding you. So, please make that happen. That is just about, I could go on for a while here, but I honor and respect your time. I appreciate all that everybody has done up to this point. Not nearly enough people have gotten off of their asses, though. If you think this problem is going to solve itself and you can just cheerlead, no, that's not right. Democracy doesn't work that way. When you expect the solution to fall into your lap, something will fall in your lap, all right, but it won't be what you wanted. I can guarantee you that. You need to own this problem. These are your loans. This is your problem. Little production value here. People love kittens on the internet. Hey, buddy. He's actually up for adoption, by the way, if anybody wants a cat. I'm in Wisconsin. But with that, I'm going to call it a night. Wish you all good. On that. Please understand. So good luck. Godspeed, everybody. And God bless.